Tabor, the and inspiring you to feel Austin. High population of residents experiencing homelessness and the traffic. Let's not start talking about the traffic. With all the challenges we see on a daily basis, we need a hope shot, something that will inspire us to partner together to see the change we want to see in our city by being the change we want to see in our city. So I will be interviewing people who are doing good work in the business and nonprofit sectors, as well as in our education and faith communities. We might even interview a few celebrities because they tend to love Austin too. There's an often quoted slogan that says, keep Austin weird. Well, we're going to keep Austin winning by focusing on the good work we're seeing in our city. Now I need you to go to your preferred podcast platform and subscribe to What's Good Austin. Then share this podcast with your friends, family members, co-workers, and your crazy cousins. Let's kick off 2022 with a bang. Focus on looking forward to seeing the journey that we can have together as we discover what is good in our city and partner together to make Austin even greater. Again, this is your host, Corey Tabor, the Purpose Partner. Until next time, remember to love your family, be a good neighbor, and make a deposit in someone else's life today. What's good, Austin? This is Corey Tabor, the Purpose Partner, founder and president of Triple I Coaching, where we inform, instruct, and inspire you to fulfill your purpose. I'm so excited today for our podcast. We have two legends in the Austin journalistic world, Miss Judy Maggio and Rhode, who are doing what I'm doing, trying to highlight what is good in Austin. And so we're going to be interviewing them today. But to introduce myself briefly, I grew up in Abilene. I moved to Austin to go to the University of Texas, hook 'em horns, spent my $100,000 there, got fully invested, and I've stayed here in Austin to continue working in the nonprofit sector, primarily through churches and nonprofits and ministry and those type of things. And I currently work for a faith-based nonprofit here in town, do some consulting with another business nonprofit here in town, and also run Triple I Coaching, my coaching firm, where we inform, instruct, and inspire people through speaking, coaching, writing, music, publishing, conferences, all that kind of stuff. So What's Good Austin was something that I came up with just to try to highlight the good things that are happening in our city. And as I heard that Judy and Leslie were doing something similar with ATX Good News, I said, oh man, we got to get together and talk about what's happening with ATX News and really kind of promote, because all of the news that we hear in our society today is bad news. I mean, it is marketed because that's what sells. That's what creates engagement through our social media, but also through our media outlets. And so we're going to take some time today to talk about what's good. So we start off with a kind of rapid fire question of Austin and you. So I'm going to start with Judy here, these 5 kind of rapid fire questions that we'll start with real quick, and I'll make you the highlight here, Judy. So, all right. So, all right, Judy, here we go. How long have you lived in Austin?
I moved here in 1978 to go to the University of Texas. I know I'm dating myself, but yes. I was a child prodigy. I started when I was 5 or 6.
Exactly. Okay, so you came to go to the University of Texas. What do you love about Austin?
You know, I love so much about this city. I often say that I love Austin the same way I love a human being in my life. And sometimes you have to have tough conversations with people. And sometimes I want to have a tough conversation with Austin about, hey, where's the infrastructure? How bad is the traffic? But what I love about it most are the people. The people here are welcoming and warm and caring. And I think both of our missions with your show and our show is to highlight some of those warm, wonderful people. And I also think it's a place where creativity and differences are celebrated and not hindered. And the final thing would be the natural beauty. I love being out and hiking and swimming and just enjoying the physical beauty of our community.
That's awesome. So what would you say is your favorite place? You can be anywhere in Austin, Texas. Where would you like to be?
I'm a big Barton Springs lover. I'm one of those crazy folks who plunges on New Year's Day, but there's something about Barton Springs that I feel like it's almost like the soul of Austin. When I'm there, I look around and I kind of see old Austin, and you're swimming and you can see the city skyline. And to me, that feels like Austin at its best.
Awesome. All right, now this might get you in trouble, but I don't want it to. I just want you to be honest with me. What's your favorite restaurant in Austin? You know, I'm known for food. What would you say is a favorite place for you to go and get something to eat?
You know, I'm really bad about trying all the new places. My daughters always say, "Why don't you try this new place or that new place?" And it's like, because I know what I like, but I know I need to. But I would have to say probably Warro's down on South Congress. I have so many memories there of being with various friends, and I'm just a lover of good old Tex-Mex food, you know. So I would have to say Warro's.
That's awesome. Yeah, my wife is African American, but I think inside there's Mexican blood because she can eat Mexican food
I love
every
it.
day. You know, I don't eat cheese, but I have learned to eat Mexican food without cheese. I get enchiladas without cheese. I get fajitas without
Sure.
cheese. You know, you just find a way to make it work if you're going to be successful in Austin and in Texas. So thank you so much, Judy, for sharing those kind of quick things and letting us get to know you in that way. Let's move on to Leslie. Ms. Leslie Rhode, talk to me. How long have you lived in Austin, Texas?
I have lived in Austin 21 plus years. And that's two different stints, Corey, two different stints. I lived here for a while, and then my family and I moved to Washington, D.C., and then we just couldn't wait to get back. So we came back. So add it all up, it's 21 plus years.
Awesome. And what originally brought you to Austin?
My job, I had a job at KXAN News. That's where I've always worked when I was in television news here in Austin, and that's what brought me here. From Arkansas, I'm originally from Arkansas and grew up there and worked there for a while, but moved here, I want to say 96 to start working at KXAN.
Oh, awesome. So I was in college when you started at KXAN. That's why I'm so connected to you and Judy. Like, I watched you for years on television every night, you know, between the two stations you guys were working at. And what's interesting is that, did you know that Arkansas is in the Bible, Leslie? Did you know that? Did you know? Can you hear me?
Now I lost you for a minute, but what? Okay, so repeat the question.
Yeah, did you know that Arkansas is in the Bible?
Arkansas is in the Bible?
Yes, Genesis chapter 6. Noah looked out the ark and saw. My old pastor used to tell me that joke, man. I would be looking for
it. He saw a lot of water, didn't he? He saw lots of water.
For sure. So tell me, what do you love?
You know, I love the energy about Austin. All of the energy. I think that's probably the best way to describe it. The spirit of entrepreneurship that is out there, so many things to try, so many opportunities, and just the people as well, as Judy said, the people that bring that energy that you just feel when you're in this city.
Definitely. What's your favorite place to be in Austin?
I got lots of them. It was hard to pick one. I'm thinking, I'm going to say Zilker Park, primarily because I have a lot of great memories there with my two children growing up, taking them down there. And when you're in Zilker, you sort of see the nature and the beautiful parts of the city, but yet you can look over and see the skyline and the bustling growth that's there. So it's a great place to be. And again, you feel that energy that the city has.
Right. That's awesome. Okay, your favorite restaurant in Austin, Texas. Give it to us.
That's got to be the hardest one because I like so many. But I know Judy talked about memories, and I think I'm going to go with some of those too, because I have a lot of good memories at Manuel's down in South Lamar, and got to shut, you know, it's Tex-Mex. What else? And then I'm going to go outside of the city just a little bit, because I live a little bit outside of the city, to the Salt Lick out on 1826. The barbecue, fantastic friends gathering, just some great memories there, and the food is fantastic.
Yeah, and the little fire pit, man, that thing is so cool.
Oh yeah.
At the original Driftwood location. You know, everybody in the north, they know about the one by the Dell Diamond, but that's secondary to Driftwood. You know, Driftwood is it.
Yeah, I've never been to the one at Dell Diamond. I didn't
Oh
think
yeah,
it
it's
was
right
such a
next to
thing.
the Dell Diamond. Yeah, it's right next to the Dell Diamond in the parking lot. That's the one I can get to the closest. So when I go, that's where I end up. So
Okay.
well, man, it's so good to get to know you all a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about your backgrounds and your careers, and a little bit about the show ATX Good News. So, tell me, Judy, about kind of how you got started in journalism. What brought you to the journalistic kind of field?
Well, I was very involved in speech and debate in high school, and there weren't that many women on TV in the 70s as role models, but it was something I always kind of aspired to because I love to write and I love to perform. And my speech coach in college was the one who encouraged me to study journalism. And I came to the University of Texas, and I was one of the very lucky ones who got a job right out of college as a rookie 21-year-old reporter at KVUE back in 1981. Again, I'm dating myself. So that's how it all started. And I spent, unlike a lot of people in TV, I spent my entire career right here in Austin, Texas. 21 years at KVUE, and then I jumped ship and went over to KI with CBS. The network bought them, and I was there for 11 years.
Awesome. Now tell me, what role has education played in your journey?
Well, hook 'em horns. You know, I bleed orange, and I'm a graduate of the University of Texas. And I have to say that my internship was the springboard for my career, and it was my college journalism professor who nominated me for an internship with WFA-ATD in Dallas at their Capitol Bureau. And it was because I had that experience in Austin at the Capitol Bureau, and on the recommendation of the reporter I worked with, I was hired as an entry-level reporter at a very young age here. So I'd say education in the form of internships and those hands-on experiences as a college student really paid off with starting my career.
I often tell students, as I counsel them and coach them on purpose, that the educational experience is a combination of in the classroom and outside of the classroom. I had an aunt who told me, take classes that don't go to your major, just to enjoy college. Take an art class. I took a weightlifting class so I can learn how to lift weights properly. Because when I came to college, I weighed 120 pounds. And the freshman did not happen for me, you know? So I was like, I'm gonna go in here and lift these weights, try to get to 130.
Yeah.
I took a tennis class because I watched the French Open and Chang winning the French
that's
Open.
the beauty of it, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. It was just so
as
awesome.
journalists, you know, we're supposed to know a little bit about a lot of things. So in college, I tried to also take a wide variety of political classes, history classes, science classes, because I knew these were areas I would have to cover as a journalist.
Yeah, it's so good. I mean, I really feel like students sometimes get so pinpointed on what their major is that they miss out on what's going to make them a well-rounded employee, which is the experience in the classroom, but also outside of the classroom. So I think internships are so significant because they teach you what you're good at and what you're not so good at. You move from being unconsciously incompetent to kind of being, okay, consciously incompetent. I know what I don't know. So now I know what questions to ask so I can get a mentor, somebody that can help me to get to where I ultimately want to be. So I think education is not just that formal component in the classroom, but it's also the informal outside of the classroom.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
Tell me about the role that your family played in your journey.
Well, you know, my family was very supportive. I mean, I know some people's parents say, you know, you can't major in journalism or English because you'll never get a job. I mean, my family, especially my mom, was always very supportive and encouraged me to do the things that I was good at, that I enjoyed pursuing. And, you know, she believed that if you pursue your passion and you enjoy your work, then you will be successful. And that's something I've tried to pass on to our kids, you know, is that it's okay to not study something that traditionally is going to make you a lot of money. If you really put your mind to it and your heart into it, then you will be successful. So I think that was probably it. They might just had, I was lucky to live in a household where my parents loved me and help pay for my college education, and encouraged, education was always front and center, but also just lovingly supportive of the endeavors that I wanted to pursue.
That's awesome. I tell people all the time, if you pursue your purpose with passion over time and you perfect it, it will produce a paycheck. Now, it may not be the paycheck. It may not be the salary. It may not be your salary or vocation, but it can be supplemental. And I tell people all the time when I talk about purpose, there's a difference between being passionate about something and being good at something. We watch American Idol's, auditions every year, and there are people who are passionate about music, but it is a hobby, not a career. If you struggle with the English language, journalism isn't going to work for you. You're not going to be able to walk. Not walk. You're not going to be able to write. You're not going to be able to articulate on screen. And so, people have to find what they're passionate about, but have a gifting, a natural ability, acquired skill connected to it that'll help them be effective. What do you wish you had known when you started that you know now?
That's always a hard question. As it relates to ATX Good News, our current project that Les and I are doing, I would say I wished I'd known that we were going to kind of be overwhelmed with so many people responding and sending us stories, and we weren't prepared. We were going to kind of slowly introduce this and make our way, but we're 6 weeks in, and we've just been really touched, but a little bit overwhelmed by the number of people who've reached out and the story idea. So we're having trouble because it's just the two of us keeping up. So maybe launching a little slower and kind of gradually reaching up. But hey, that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. And as far as something I would like to tell my younger self, I feel like I missed out on the entire 1980s because I was trying so hard to get ahead in my career and do well. And it's like people make pop culture references to the 80s or music references, and I go, oh, was that a great movie? Was that a song? I don't know. I was working so many hours and so hard that I never lifted my head up to kind of enjoy my life in my 20s. And I think young people today have a better balance. In my generation, my mother didn't work outside the home. So, we were just so excited that, here we were able to take on the world and prove ourselves. And I think I would like to tell my younger self to take a little more time to chill, do some yoga, meditation, take a walk. So yeah, that would be it.
Yeah, I agree. I so agree, Judy. And I always say, as a journalist, I always had so much fun covering the stories, but I never really experienced them, if you know what I'm saying. During those years when we were trying to prove ourselves, or we thought we were trying to get to some place or some goal, I would cover the big festivities or ACL or whatever, but I never really went and experienced them because I was so busy trying to prove and work, prove myself and work. And so that's what I would tell myself. Don't forget to enjoy the experience. That's for
you all being women in the industry, where honestly it's just not equal. The pay is not equal, the opportunities aren't equal, the pressure you have to have the look. I've seen people get pushed out of media because they turn 45. It's like they still look amazing, but there's this 22-year-old who's another image of what the media wants or what the owner wants or whatever. And so talk to me about what it was like coming into this sector, Judy, in the 80s, and for you, Leslie, in the 90s, when still we weren't having women headline shows. There wasn't. I remember Connie Chung, she had one of the evening news shows for a while there, but we were still seeing women try to get their foothold, in the news sector. Tell me what that was like as a woman coming up in your career.
Leslie, do you want to start with that one?
Sure. I'll start with that. First of all, Corey, I don't know what you're talking about. People never get pushed out of television news because of their age. I mean, never.
Never. No. I've never known that to happen.
Yeah. Well, I think I came up in television news, or worked in the area and rose up in the ranks of what I did at a time when women were really already out there setting the pace. You mentioned Connie Chung, Diane Sawyer, Katie Couric was on the Today Show, and everybody wanted to be her. So we had those women role models that were out there. But yes, I mean, every male co-anchor that I sat by every evening, no matter what station that was, no matter what city I was working in, I knew made more money than I did. So that was just part of it, right? Judy, I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I guess because I stayed in the same city for such a long time that I became the senior anchor. You know, I was on the air here for 32 years. So in my final job, I was the older person on the set. You know, back in the day, they'd say, well, a typical anchor team is a man that looks like an executive and his younger second wife or something like that. But I had a little bit different experience, I think, just because I stayed here. So I actually had parity, or actually, I think, made more money than my co-anchors the last 10 years of my career. That wasn't that way at all at the start when I was starting out anchoring the first, 10, 15 years. But I guess if you stay long enough and you're allowed to age on camera, then you can reach some parity. But, I have to say that I think Leslie and I were lucky in that we both left television news, commercial television, on our own terms for personal reasons. It wasn't being pushed out because we were a certain age or they wanted someone younger or who looked different. And I know that isn't always the case, but it was for both of us. And I feel very fortunate about that.
Yeah, that I feel good to hear that because I think about that often, raising two daughters, married to a wife who has 2 master's degrees, highly competent. But when we've worked at the same location, I made almost twice what she made. And I didn't have the education that she had, but it was just considered, that role that I was in was considered to be more valuable, so to speak. And I think they felt like they paid us as a couple, and I wanted her to get her due pay. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, I should get my due pay too. So like, whatever you giving me for her, first of all, you should be giving me mine, giving her hers. And we should be making, almost twice what we're making, probably. But it is the reality of our situation. And my hope is, as a business owner, to pay people what they're worth. And I hire a lot of women in particular because I want them to have the opportunity to do what they do well and be successful and be on the journey with me as we take, the steps that we're taking to get to where we're trying to go with Triple I coaching and that kind of thing. So, I want to get back to Leslie real quick and talk a little bit, Leslie, about how you got started in your career and what role education played for you.
I'll first tell you that I was a teacher first before I became a journalist in television news. I've always considered myself a storyteller. Even I can remember growing up as a child, and I would either play news or I would write little books, or I would be reading. I was always a storyteller in some way or another. And so I knew that I wanted to do something in storytelling. Now, when it came time to go to college, I had 2 parents they were both teachers. So I didn't really have many options. I say that jokingly. I had to follow its steps as a teacher. But one of the reasons that I did that, other than the fact that I thought I would get a job and that there would always be a need for teachers, is because when you worked in elementary education and when you were getting a degree in elementary education, you got to take a variety of courses. And I didn't want to focus on one thing. I couldn't imagine an education, a college experience where all I did was do math. Or math and science. I wanted to do language and history and talk about psychology and all those things. So in getting a degree in elementary education, I was able to do that. And then I taught school in Arkansas, my home state, 4th graders. I loved it. Perfect age. If I went back to teaching, that's the age I would teach. And I decided through all of that, the whole time I was getting my degree and even as I was working, I always had this little inkling in the back of my mind. I really want to tell stories in television news. That's where I really want to make a difference. I wanted to be part of a community. So I wanted to work at a local television station. That was always my dream, but I didn't quite do it because I was a little bit afraid to do it. Well, after I taught for a while, I decided to go back and get my master's degree in communications and radio television. And so I kind of had a second stint in school to go back and then focus on journalism. And I think I just had to build up the confidence of being out of the house. I was the youngest one in the house. and get some confidence and get the confidence needed to go and try to be a television journalist. So after I got my master's, I started work. I didn't really get a job in TV at first, though. It was radio at first for sales. Then I finally got a television job in Arkansas. I worked there and then in Texas. And as I said earlier, in Washington, D.C. at a local station for a while, and then came back to Austin, thankfully, and have enjoyed my time here. So I've worked in 3 different states, but I've always been a storyteller. And I think that was where I needed to be. It just took me a while to get there. And now, I mean, I left, as Judy said, I left television news on my terms for my family. And that kind of segues over to what my family has, that role that my family has played. I have 2 kids and I had them in Washington when we were there, moved back to Austin and was watching them grow. And there came a time when I was doing the evening news every night. I wouldn't see my children at night. I would take them to school in the morning and I wouldn't see them until the next morning. And they were young, and it was just really hard to do that. Fortunately, my husband was supportive, and he was the dad after school and in the evenings. But I knew I wanted to be more a part of my children's daily lives. I wanted to see their faces when they got home from schools, to see what kind of day they had. I wanted to see their teachers' faces to see what kind of day they had. And so I transitioned off of full-time news. It was a tough thing to do, but as Judy said, it was on my terms, which was great. And I have not regretted it one bit. It has led me on to realize that there are more stories to be told. And that's what Judy and I are doing with ATX Good News. So we're so happy that we're both able to tell stories again.
That is so awesome just to hear the journey. Where are you originally from?
I'm originally from Arkansas.
Okay, got you. Yeah, so to hear the journey and the story, I think I talk a lot in my book about Prioritize for Your Purpose, about knowing your spirit, which is like your values, your belief systems. For people of faith, it incorporates their understanding of God, but then it goes into knowing yourself. Like, what are your natural abilities, your acquired skills? What is your personality? How do you respond to others and opportunities? How do you respond to people and problems? But then we get into like knowing your season. And I think what you guys have both communicated is the season in your life kind of dictated what you did in your career. So there were seasons in your life where you worked your tail off to get to where you wanted to be career-wise, but you had to sacrifice being a part of whatever it was that you were covering in order to get to where you wanted to be. But now you're saying, Leslie, for you, the season of parenting became more important because you wanted to be in your kids' lives at that stage. I know when we got pregnant with our second daughter, I knew I had to make some adjustments. One adjustment was driving Uber and Lyft on Friday nights to pay for daycare. And the second adjustment was I was on 7 boards of directors, including the One Star Foundation, One Star Service Commission boards the governor appointed me to. And I had to get off of like 6 of those boards. I didn't leave the One Star board because when the governor appoints you, you stay. Because governor, right? Me and Governor Abbott, we try to get things done. So. But I was in the community, but I knew I could not be the dad I needed to be, which included me doing night duty so that my wife could sleep through the night, because she can't go back to sleep as quickly as I can, and she can't survive on as little sleep as I can. And so I would get up when my daughter would wake up, and I would give her some crackers, and then I would eat some crackers, and so my wife got pregnant, and I gained weight. I don't know how that works, but that's exactly what happened. But it was about shifting my focus from my community work and my career to my family. Now my daughter's 3. She sleeps through the night. She's potty trained. So I'm launching What's Good, Austin. I'm writing books again. I'm out speaking more. And every season of your life will communicate, if you listen to the choices that you need to make to do life well, whether that be with your friends, your family members, your coworkers. I tell friends all the time, man, I took the season of college for granted related to what relationships were going to be, because after college, you don't have 10 hours a day to hang out with your friends and stay up all night and go to IHOP and, wake up at 10. It's like you're commuting an hour to work, commuting an hour home, working 40 to 50 hours a week. It's just not the same. And so every season, communicates a unique component of our purpose. Well, tell me, Leslie, what do you wish you had known when you started your career that you know now?
A lot. I think part of me wishes that I would have tried other areas in journalism other than television news a little earlier in my career that could have just lasted a little bit longer. I used to joke with people, say, well, I'm not going to stay in this forever because I'm sure when HDTV gets here, I'll be off the air. Like, I'll be too old for that. When they get that high definition stuff, you're going to see every wrinkle. It's not going to work. And oh, they brought in all those special eye lights and all those fancy things and makeup changed and everything just so we could survive that. So I somehow survived the high definition switch over. But I wish I would have been able to, kind of going back to what I said before, to find some other areas in storytelling that I could have latched onto that didn't require me to be there, not so much on air, but so much in the evening every day, and in all the hours that my kids needed me there. I wish I could have transitioned to something that would still allow me to storytell in television news, but yet not demand me to be there the hours that I was there.
Well, that's helpful to know. And I think part of my goal in asking that question on this show is for a 20-year-old who's getting ready to do an internship, and they think that internship will get them to where they want to be. And they are thinking, what choices am I going to make with my time, my talent, my treasure to get to where I want to be? But is where I want to be where I really want to be? Mm-hmm. I think when you're young, you think money is everything. If I just make as much money as you can. And the benefit I've had of traveling to Africa, going to Kenya, Ethiopia, spending time with people in developing countries, is that there's a high level of happiness with less resource based on the fact that they are rich in relationships. Mm. So when I went to Kenya, there was no start and end time. You just show up until you're done and then you leave. So, obviously they've adopted some of the, starting at a certain point, but there's this looseness of the schedule that says relationships are more important than tasks, than checklist, than acquisition, than self-actualization or moving up the ladder. Relationships is what's important. And I saw people choose to live their lives in a way that valued relationships. And they were more successful as leaders, in my opinion, because they were able to mobilize people at a greater level, because relationship was the equity, the resource that was leveraged to get the job done. As compared to here, we just pay people more. You know what I'm saying? It's like, okay, I need you to stay here, so I'm gonna pay you more money, as compared to building a relationship with someone where you can actually cash a relational check and say, hey, I know we may not be able to afford you, but the way we built this team, I don't see this team without you. And it kind of gives more value to the person for who they are, and not just what they do. So
Corey, I also say I'm going to backpack on your purpose, because I can't wait to read your book. I love everything that has to do with it, but brand is very important, and I wish I would have been more comfortable and really spent some time doing some of the things you're talking about in looking for my personal brand. You want to call it my story, my values, whatever. Because as you work, you become, you start living someone else's brand in some ways, or you can, because the company you work for, the television station you work for, you represent them and you're living by their brand. And so often I think we lose sight of our own brands and our own purpose and our own values of who God made us to be, right? Yeah. And so I wish I had established that. And that's kind of hard to say looking back, 20 something, it's hard to say that. But that's so, so, so important as you go through any line of work in any industry. It's being really comfortable and strong in your own personal brand.
That's so true. I think sometimes people don't feel like they have permission to do that. Mm-hmm. So they feel like, I just got to be what they want me to be in order to do what they want me to do, so I can get what they need me to get. So, and I've lived that before, because I was like, okay, I got to take care of my family. So I made choices to not pursue certain dreams, certain goals, because it was like the job was how I fed my family. Thank you for tuning in to What's Good Austin. Please like and subscribe to What's Good Austin by Corey Tabor podcast.